Well, thank you for the opportunity to present my book, Friday is the New Saturday. And the book is about the 4-day working week. And as an idea, the 4-day working week arouses general sympathy, but very often is portrayed as being harmful to the economy. We would all be happier, but the economy would be the price we have to pay for the good life. In the book, I want to challenge this narrative and explain why I think the 4-day working week will actually improve rather than harm our economies. I see it not as a partisan policy or a win for the labor movement, but as a social innovation, a better way to organize economic activity in the 21st century. And let me start with an important distinction. Most of what you hear in the news are about the 4-day working week as a management practice implemented by firms to improve their businesses. The firms that have moved to the 4-day working week, they report that workers are more efficient, they make fewer mistakes, they are more innovative, reduces the incidence of stress and burnout, absenteeism or labor turnover, and overall it makes the business improve. My proposal is different, is what economists call a macroeconomic policy. So it's a top-down policy implemented to the entire economy through legislation over the period of 4 to 6 years. Similar to the current initiative of California Representative Mark Takano. The idea is simple. It's to coordinate all economic activity that we currently do over the week in offices, banks, stock markets, universities, and coordinate it over 4 days, Monday to Thursday, and coordinate all economic activity that occurs over the weekend on 3 days, Friday to Sunday. There's many economic activities that occur continuously throughout the week, in hospitals, key services, hospitality, restaurants, and they would still occur over the 7 days, but the standard work week of the workers would be 4 days. I know the first time you see this, it sounds alien because it's so natural, the concept of Monday to Friday, but there's really nothing theological or biological or astrological about working 5 days. The working week is a social, political, and economic construct. In the 19th century, people worked 6 days and rested only on Sunday. In 1908, the first firms started adopting this radical new management practice called the 5-day working week. In 26, the movement got a big boost when Henry Ford, arguably one of the greatest entrepreneurs of all time, implemented in all its factories. He showed the feasibility of the management practice, but still by 29, only 5% of the workforce was on the 5-day working week. It was in 1938 that the 5-day working week moved from the management practice to the macroeconomy with the approval of the Fair Labor Standards Act, a key part of Roosevelt's New Deal, first implemented only to firms that were doing interstate commerce, so the bigger firms in the US economy, but giving them 2 years for the 5-day, 40-hour week to become effective. It only expanded to other corners of the economy in the 1950s and 60s. Now, the criticisms that you hear today about the 4-day working week are very similar to the criticisms you heard back at the time about the 5-day working week. In 1936, the president of Brookings Institute, an influential think tank, said a shorter work week would prove nothing short of a calamity to the wage earners of this country. And just 84 years later, Matthew Lynn, in the pages of the Telegraph, if any government was crazy enough to try, it would simply turn the deep recession we already face into a complete catastrophe. Now, what's really remarkable about these criticisms of the 5-day working week back then is that they essentially disappeared once it was implemented. No one ever wanted to go back to this organizing the economy through 6 days and having a 1-day rest. And not only that, the critics disappeared, and they gave rise to the first visionaries of the 4-day working week, the first of whom was Vice President Richard Nixon in 1956, that said the 4-day working week would be coming soon. Why did this happen? Because people realized after it was implemented that it was a better way to organize economic activity in the 20th century. And I think we are 80 years later, we are in that situation where it's very clear to me that the 4-day working week will be a better way to organize economic activity in the 21st century. Think about it. In 80 years, everything has changed in societies. The technology we use, the jobs we do, the speed in which we communicate, the length of our lives, the number of years that we study, the structure of our family, and the nature of our social interactions, everything has changed. And we still think about 5 as that magical number, as if it was a constant in physics or mathematics. I'm going to organize my economic arguments for the 4-day working week in eight reasons, and I'm going to enlist the help of 4 of the greatest political economists in history, each one torchbearer of different ideologies, and each one viewing the economy in a different way. So John Maynard Keynes, reason number 1, because it is possible. The choice as societies about how much we work, it's exactly that. It's a choice. It's not a law of economics. Reason number 2, because it will fuel the economy through the demand for leisure industries. We need money to buy goods, to consume, but we also need time. It's during our free time that we feel our needs, and it's during our free time that we consume many of the goods. The 4-day working week will stimulate the economy. So the demand for leisure industries, tourism, culture, restaurants, entertainment. Joseph Schumpeter, Austrian economist and called the prophet of innovation. Reason number 3, because it will increase productivity. And reason number 4, because it would unleash the potential of a vast talent pool of innovators. The seeds of the deepest innovation is not planted with money, it's planted with time. The most brilliant of examples is again Henry Ford. He constructed his car with the internal combustion engine over 3 years in his own shed while having a 6-day job in one of Thomas Edison's electricity plants. He became Henry Ford because of what he did in his leisure time, his spare time. And like Henry Ford, hundreds of entrepreneurs, inventors, writers that developed, that had a day job and developed their passion for which they became known in their leisure time. Karl Marx, reason number 5, because it will reduce technological unemployment, the unemployment that comes from the introduction of automation or labor-saving technologies that can devaluate entire occupations very, very, very quickly. Reason number 6, because it will raise wages and reduce inequality. And Friedrich von Hayek, one of the economists, father of liberalism. Reason number 7, because it will give people more freedom to choose what to do with their time, including how much to work. I argue that people would be more freer to work more under a 4-day working week if they want to, than the people that currently want to work less under a 5-day working week. And reason number 8, because it will reconcile a polarized society and crush populist movements that currently pose the biggest downside risk to the economy. These 4 economists, they were torchbearers of different ideologies. Each one saw the economy with a different lens. Each one thought the adjustments that happen in the economy are different, and each one thought what's important to improve our economies is different. What I try to argue in the book is that whatever the view that you have, whether you are conservative or liberal in the UK sense, or progressive or Marxist, we can find common ground in this idea. We can unite behind the 4-day working week. Now, if you see, most of these arguments relate to the effects of society when everyone moves to the 4-day working week. These will benefit firms, but only indirectly. There's only one of the economic reasons that relates specifically to the benefits that firms have when they implement the 4-day working week. When the firm implements a 4-day working week, they won't necessarily benefit directly from the reduction of inequality or the disappearance of populist movements or the increase in demand for leisure industries, but they will benefit from the increase in productivity. So the rest of my talk, I want to talk about exactly this. Why this productivity increase when you reduce the working week for your workers. And I'm going to draw the lessons from Henry Ford. Henry Ford, he was obsessed about producing cars at a cheap possible cost. Why would he reduce the working week for its workers? And he explained it in the long statement, the reasons for why he was doing it. And a big part of the rationale is because the shortening the working week will improve the workers. They will have better workers. He wrote, "We must not confound leisure with shiftlessness. Our people are perfectly capable of using to good advantage the time that they have off after work. We find that men come back after a 2-day holiday so fresh and keen that they are able to put their minds as well as their hands into their work. More rested workers are more efficient, more able to solve problems, more innovative, but also they make fewer mistakes. They take fewer sick days and they are less likely to quit." And I want you to think, so there is this notion that even when I'm tired, if I work a little bit more, I'm going to just I'll add something. It might not be as much when we are rested, but you'll add a little something. And then we keep pushing. But then what we don't account is that when you work, when you are tired, you are much more likely to make mistakes, accidents, errors, and these are extremely costly. In a conveyor belt in the factory, well, sometimes you have to stop production altogether. Sometimes the products are defective. If they are spotted by quality control, they're just useless, and it's a cost. Sometimes they go to consumers, and then they damage the reputation of the company. What was the cost for Boeing of having the 737, the grounding of the 737 MAX, that were grounded because of the control problems that were caused by a sequence of mistakes in different areas of design, production, quality control. The same for the airbags that happened, the recall of the Toyota because of defective airbags. Mistakes are extremely costly for firms, and more rested workers make fewer mistakes. They're also less likely to take fewer sick days. What's the cost of absenteeism? It's usually a problem when you have continuous production, let's say in hospitals, in care homes. If a doctor doesn't show up because he's sick, he has to go and hiring short notice agency staff that tend to be 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times more costly to come and replace. The same with labor turnover, having people that quit because of overwork. It's a loss, what economists call the human capital, the firm-specific human capital of workers that just disappears, and then the recruitment and training costs of new workers. Now, our economies are very different from the economies of Henry Ford. At the time, the problem with workers was repetitive motion disorders. So this was a syndrome that was immortalized by Charlie Chaplin in his movie Modern Times. Now the problems are different, and it's mainly mental illnesses. See what the Harvard Business Review wrote. In the US alone, workplace stress costs the economy around $300 billion per year in absenteeism, diminishing productivity, and legal and medical fees. Unsurprisingly, study after study shows that stress and burnout are major drivers of staff turnover, accidents, injuries, and substance abuse. Mental illnesses are robbing businesses right now. Now, to understand why the 4-day working week is more important today than 50 years ago, it's because of the rise of mental illnesses. And why are they on the rise? Well, because jobs are changing. They are now less factory jobs that were routine, possibly physically more demanding, but the new jobs, what economists call non-routine abstract, they are mentally more draining because they always require you to be always attentive. If you see doctors, journalists, programmers, these all show up in the lists of the most stressful jobs are these non-routine abstract jobs that have been increasing in the past 50 years. Also, demographics are changing, the structure of the family. Before, the large majority of women stayed at home. And now most couples, you have the two members of the couple working, and so when you come back home, you have to do a lot of all those tasks. So it's really not resting time. It's also that the speed in which you communicate is faster. So you send an email and you have an answer after 5 minutes, and before you would send a letter and you'd have an answer in 1 week. So all this reduces the time at work in which you're resting. It's much more intensive. Now, the second reason is that shortening the working week will improve management of firms. And Henry Ford said, this decision to put in effect a short work week is not sudden. We have been going towards it for 3 or 4 years. Now we know from our experience in changing from 6 to 5 days and back again, that we can get at least as great production in 5 days as we can get in 6. And we shall probably get a greater, for the pressure will bring better methods. The harder we crowd business for time, the more efficient it becomes. If the task is set of getting more done in 5 days than we now do in 6, then management will find a way. When you go to the gym, you put strain on your muscles to build your muscles. It's the same thing. The pressure of time will force managers to change, introduce new processes, change the pattern of meetings or email habits, getting new software and machines, alter their products to respond to the reduction of the working week with better methods. The 4-day working week is a powerful force to incentivize technological adoption and innovation. And this is productivity gains. This is what leads to productivity gains. Now, let me summarize the lessons that we can take from Henry Ford. Well, first, just from looking at the time, the 4-day working week will face the same resistance the 5-day working week faced in the beginning of the 20th century. Second, it's the need to experiment. You can think about the shortening of the working week as an investment with an uncertain productivity returns. It's an investment because it has this cost of rearranging how you do things immediately in the short run, and it will just improve the firm, but that will come a bit later, and the returns in terms of productivity are uncertain. That's why experimentation is so important. That's why Henry Ford went back and forth for 3 to 4 years before making the decision, because it was very clear that the productivity gains were very, very large. And they will come because better workers will reduce costs with mistakes and errors. They will work faster. They'll also reduce absenteeism and turnover costs. And also because of better management that will improve the organizational aspects of the firm. There is an element of coordination and the trade-off between coordination within the firm and coordination with suppliers and clients. Firms that have implemented a 4-day working week, they have to make an important decision whether they want to give everyone a different day off, which maintains the coordination with clients and suppliers, but worsens the coordination within the firm because people are not all the time working at the same time. Or you give everyone a Friday off. So you reduce activity of the firm on Friday, which improves the coordination within firm because everyone is working at the same time, but it worsens the coordination with suppliers and clients. This happened the same with Henry Ford. He decided to shut down on Saturday, so to improve the coordination within firm and not worrying about the coordination with suppliers and clients. This came because it was a large firm, so the clients and suppliers would work around Ford Motor Company. So this comes to the last point, that the larger gains of shortening the work week actually come when the firms are larger. Larger firms benefit more because clients and suppliers will work around you, but also because being large, you would be also one of the biggest beneficiaries of having an economy working. The economy will work better for these other reasons that I didn't go into detail, but we can talk about them in the discussion. So I'm just going to leave you with a final lesson from Henry Ford. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. Thank you.